Hello, everybody. My name is Prakriti Manyar. I'm the editor and co founder at Purple Pencil Project. And today I'm speaking to Vani Tripathi Tikoo, who is an author, actor, producer, theater activist. Today we will talk about Why Elephants Can't Be Read, a children's book she's written, which has been published by Niyogi Books. And thank you, Vaniji, for making time for the interview today. And welcome to the interview.
Thank you, Prakriti. And I love the name Purple Pencil Project because, again, like elephants being gray, pencils also supposed to be gray. And here there's a pencil which is purple and there's an elephant which is red. So I think we're going to have a lot of fun talking today.
Yes, I'm excited about that. I want to jump straight in because before the interview, I was going through your Twitter feed and I could immediately tell it's a storyteller. You know, you love stories. It's full of movies, it's full of memes about movies, and of course, author books and the world of words and the world of storytelling in general. So I kind of wanted to, go back to the beginning about how what kinds of storytelling forms influenced you growing up? How were you exposed to them? And what are some of your early memories of stories, books that you've read and been influenced and inspired by?
My God, you've actually asked the question because the whole of my life is called the Brahmand in Hindi. But yes, I can start from the very beginning. I'm the only daughter of two academics, and my father was a very interesting writer and a scholar of literature. My mother was a very, sort of dense poet. I call her dense because she used to write extremely dense poetry, which everybody used to like, and I used to not understand most of it in my childhood. So, and being the only child, grew up in a world of books because we also lived in a complex of university professors of Delhi, where my whole fraternity, my neighbor was a chemistry professor, my immediate neighbor was a biology professor, the guy above us in the complex was a physicist. So I think somewhere I would say it's been a bit of a privileged kind of childhood to grow up with so many academics and so many different influences, which deal with books and academia. Uh, yes, my father was a very good storyteller. Let me start from here. And apart from his work in literature, he was a very known commentary on one of the biggest epic books of our times, the Ramayana. He was seen as a very important scholar, on the Ramayana. And we are a land of Kathavachak. India, every nook and corner is a story. But I think the epic tale of Ramayana and Mahabharata is what we have grown up with. So, like many other kids, I was furthermore exposed to the whole concept of Kathavachan because Ramayana is Kathavachan, whether it is recited or it is sung or it is said as a katha or it's just told as a story. Also, my childhood was full of books. I mean, it was so funny that at 13, I actually turned around and told my father that I'm bored and I've read everything. So he turned around and said to me that don't be so vain. You haven't read anything of what you don't know. You've only read things that you know. So I'd done my Dickens and I'd done my Hindi poems and stories because they were both also Hindi and Sanskrit scholars. So I was exposed to a lot of Hindi books. They were both scholars of this amazing period of Hindi poetry called Chayavad. So Mahadevi Verma, Suryakant Tripathi Nirala, Jaishankar Prasad was a part of our everyday conversations at home. But then after 13, yes, it did open the whole plethora of plays, scripts. I started doing professional theatre almost by the time I was 15. My father was very supportive about that. Most kids don't get that opportunity at 15 in India. But he saw it in me that I want to tell stories on stage. So you're right, I am a storyteller. That's all that I know. Even actors are storytellers, so are directors and writers. So also looking at theatre, it's an amalgamation of all kinds of forms of storytelling. It's the poem, the poetry, the music, the dance, the theatre, the script. improvisation, all of it comes together in one form that is the theater. So, since I am a theater wali from my childhood, yes, that makes me some sort of an inquiry oriented storyteller. My stories are inquiries into the mind, as I call it, with great fun and frolic, not like uh, uh, Sigmund Freud or the psychoanalysis bit. But theater itself is therapeutic, and so is telling stories. And I absolutely and thoroughly enjoy it.
I love that. It's such a colorful kind of world that you live in, and so diverse in terms of all the forms. Coming to, of course, Why Elephants Can't Be Read, the book you've written. I read briefly how you'd written it during the lockdown when you were separated from your daughter. She was in Singapore and you were in India, and I can only imagine what a difficult and stressful time that must have been. Added pressure. COVID was there, but so was this distance between you and your daughter. But if you could throw some light on how did you think, why this book came out at that time? Were you trying to capture her life, or her life that could have been in Singapore? What was the kind of approach and creative process that you went through? If you can throw some light on that.
So one of the big things that happened during the pandemic was we understand the value of family. You know, I had an ailing, bedridden mother, and I'm the only child, and I don't have any support family in India. So this family of 12 large Kashmiri Pandit family that I'm married into, who shuttle between India and Singapore, and most of them are in Singapore. My husband and Akshara, my daughter, who's the protagonist in the book called Akku, who's 2.5 at that time, came to Singapore. Singapore shut down. And I was stuck with Amma, my mother in Delhi. And I had to look after her because I couldn't leave her alone. And so these 12 stories are these 12 real people. So the Bade Papa is actually my brother-in-law. Mama, I don't want to let out too much, let people read the book and they will decide who's what. But it is real-time writing. And writing this book saved me. It kept me sane. If I wouldn't have even written this book, this virtual journey that I take with her, of her being in Singapore, me being in India, and so many things happening around us. Also, it's a 2.5-year-old kid's view of the world, how she looks at the adult world. What tends to happen with most of us is, and I'm not judging anybody here, we either talk down to children or we bark orders at them. We forget that they are very intelligent minds who observe things around them, people, situation, incidents. One of the things what I have tried to do and why I've written this book is also to raise a debate that we are scared of realistic writing for children. We keep peddling fantasies, kingdoms, kings, princesses, queens, dolls. All this has actually nothing to do with their real life. It's very utopian. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have fantasy for children, but what we also need to see is that realistic life around them, which is of them, by them, and for them, is very interesting for them. And also, written material around their lives is very therapeutic and problem solving. For the longest time at the National School of Drama, the tech and education company where I worked, we did this kind of theatre called Grit, which was about adults performing for, with, and as children. And the first rule of that stream of consciousness was no fantasy for kids. So we did plays, we devised plays. There were no written scripts. Almost like writing a book, we were writing a book each time we were doing a play, and children were giving us these stories. We were writing it with them through improvisation. So what I'm trying to say is that why are we scared of telling realistic stories to children? If you were to ask me why, one of the answers would be we are so busy growing up and becoming adults that we forget our childhood. Everything lies in the childhood. The complex and the complexities, the joys and the sorrows of our childhood are actually very much ingrained in the memory of our childhood. So I want to say, don't having a red elephant is also a memory of childhood. It's a fantasy, it's an imagination. Why does it have to be a palace? Why it can't be a red elephant on a canvas? This is what I want to ask. Frankly, I really believe that children are those gurus who save us from perils of adulthood.
I've loved to, I mean, yes, absolutely love the finding wonder in everyday life, in, the world around us rather than the world that we wish we had, and, but we don't. But you mentioned how, the book made real a virtual tour of her life that you are getting. And I think that is a really powerful thing because the digital is so transient, and the book so permanent. So I love that you can make it happen for you. That's really powerful. And the second thing you spoke about, this relationship between adult and child, right? Of sometimes being patronizing, sometimes being authoritative. Um, I've been through a couple of your interviews, and you mentioned how The Little Prince is one of the best books for adults to understand children. I think Somewhere Why Elephants Can't Be Read is also, actually, instead of an opinion, I want to ask you: do you think that's also a book you think that adults can use to understand children? And why? What are the qualities that you look for when you say, okay, here's how a child thinks? Here are the kinds of books you could read. What are the qualities that you would say adults can be mindful of when reading or picking books to understand children?
So this book had a twofold journey. One was, of course, the pandemic and my, sort of being away from my daughter and so on. Why Can't Elephants Be Read is the last play I did at the National School of Drama, the PI company called Lal Lal Hati, where I was the Lal Hati in the play, and it was a super hit play, and it became an identity for me. My dear friend Nawazuddin Siddiqui, even today on his phone, the name is not Vani Tripathi, it's still Lal Hati. I mean, that was the time he was also in drama school when I did the play. And the story was very interesting. It was about a kid who was very pisaddy in school, didn't do very well in studies, but was brilliant in art. And one day he goes and paints a red elephant on the canvas, and the art teacher gets very infuriated that now this is a bit much. Elephants can be gray, black, or sometimes white. Elephants are never red. So the child rages a polite but a firm debate with the art teacher who failed him in class, even in the art subject, saying that your elephant is black but mine is red, and what's your problem with it? And then I pop out of the school bag, and it's great fun and frolic, and I start talking to children. The first thing I ask kids is, can you see me? So they say, of course we can see you. So I said, you can see me because you have a gift, but the teacher doesn't. Let's find out why teacher doesn't have this gift. So then they all become a part of the play, they become a part of the narrative, and that is exactly what I'm trying to say. And Little Prince was the inspiration for the writing of Lal Lal Hati. There are two books which I think every parent anywhere in the world, whether in Helsinki or India or Singapore or America or Africa or so on and so forth, should read. One, The Little Prince, and the other one is a very beautiful book called Toto Chan, which is about the adventures of this little girl in war-torn Japan who goes to a school which actually runs in the abandoned bogies of a train. And what is her, for example, the bird is singing outside in the class, and the class is very boring, despite the fact that it's a very interesting class because it's the bogie of a train in which the class is being held, because it's war-torn Japan and everything has gotten destroyed, and the small school is running on the resolve of a few teachers who take over this bogie and run the school. And Toto Chan is very interested in the bird singing outside because she's not interested in what's happening in class. So look at the first chapter of Little Prince. The first image is that what looks like a hat, and every adult says this is a hat. What does the Little Prince say? It's a boa constrictor which is actually being eaten up by a snake. Now look at the world being so different. We are so apparent as adults. We look at images. We look at a brush, and we will call it a brush. But a child will say yay, 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 and make it into a mic and make it into a mirror and so on. So the sense of imaginative reality. I'm underlining the word imaginative reality. For a child, that immediate sense of imagination is also a reality. But for us, it is some nonsense that the child is thinking. So, yes, the Little Prince is that Bible because that whole planetary constellation is not a fantabulous dream. It's actually a reality for the Little Prince. And I think this book, if it is understood, I'm not going to insist on that, but I think also gives you a sneak peek into adults and children and their relationships. As I always say that for me, for example, Akshara, who just turned 5 last Sunday, um, the kind of resilience and tenacity she taught me, almost 2 years to be without the mother, to see me on a video call, to not being able to touch me, hear my voice, or even remember children need that physical space with their mothers, you know. They cling to their mothers, they eat with their hands, they sleep with them. All this she didn't have. Of course, she had a very nice, beautiful, warm, big family which looked after her every single day. People gave up their lives in the family to be with her because I couldn't be with her. My full salute to them. But let me also tell you what she taught me in this whole process. She taught me to go back to what my childhood was like. She also taught me by asking, in Singapore, we live at a certain area in a very famous food court called the Newton Food Court, is right opposite our house. So the first time I took her there, she saw a crab swimming in a tub, ready to be eaten up, obviously a little later. And she said, why is this creature who you call the crab here? He should be swimming in the sea. So, and she's again just 2.5, between 2.5 and 3 years of age at this time. So I'm trying to say that let us find that child who we have lost in our lives, you know. Maybe this book can be a little introduction to going back to how we were, you know, and how we looked at life around us, how we looked at the trees and the bees and the flowers and the sky around us, and how full of questions we were. And today, when they ask us questions, we either shut them up or we ignore them. That's exactly what I'm trying to say. For me, they are little people who are very intelligent and observant. We have to treat them as that.
That is so true. Absolutely agree. Kind of you've using this as a jumping board to my next question is that you've been taking this book around several parts of India, like bookstores and events. Uh, have you, are you getting these reactions from readers that they are reconnecting with their childhood from parents and children alike? What is the kind of, reaction you're getting? I'd love to know and see if that's,
Very, very interesting question. Right this morning at 2:33 a.m., which is 12 o'clock in India, I get a mail from this kid called Veer Chadda, and I'm going to read out to you what he's written. Because when he picked up the book, I think at the launch, I don't know him at all. I've never met him before. I just wrote also along with the autograph, I wrote my mail ID and I said, whenever you finish the book, it's very important for me to understand what you thought of the book. So it was his final exams and he couldn't write it then. This is at, I think, 15th of February. If you give me like 2 minutes, I'll quickly read what he's written. Dear Vani ma'am, how are you? I was Akku. Wishing her belated happy birthday. He actually remembered it was her birthday, on the 12th of March. You must be wondering who I am, and so I am the same boy who you had asked to mail the review at the book launch of your beautiful book. Written for us children, Why Can't Elephants Be Read? I'm sorry for writing the review late, as I had my final exam. As promised, here it is. And look what is written. So before I start, I want to ask you a question. From where do I start? This book is so good. It's for us children, about our feelings, about the way we see things and experience. I felt it because Akku in every chapter expresses different thoughts and emotions similar to us kids. The book is very interesting as in every chapter there is a different experience and a story. The most relatable feeling I felt reading this was when Akku got happy When we kids were allowed to go to a park, meet our friends, and visit different places. He's obviously talking about the pandemic post the lockdown. Relating to Aku's thought when she's comforting you, when you couldn't be with her was very emotional. Another thing that I imbibed from the book was that when we were doing anything creative, we don't have to draw or create it inspired only by reality. We can make it from our own imagination. I would like to conclude this review on a happy note with the funniest moment I experienced in the book. That was when Aku called. So Aku has a dog called Milo. She's very, very attached to him. When she called dog Milo, Milo Maharaj, I just couldn't stop laughing when I read that. Now I'm expecting another book from you, as now you're one of my favorite authors. And I've read many books like The Christmas Pig, my first book, Shadow, Worst Witch and the Magic Finger. But your book leads me to another level of excitement. Looking forward to your reply. Love always. Be.
That is such a beaut. How old? Wow, that is
I
such a.
think he's about 8, if I remember him correctly, because I think I do remember he's about 8 years old. Yeah.
That is such a beautiful, eloquent 8-year-old.
And yeah, and can you imagine this is what they are, and we keep thinking, what do they know? इसको बता के क्या फायदा? Why even we don't even share regular things as adults with our own children. So my first big prarthana, prayer, advice, observation, request to every single parent and young person who's watching your show is, Prakriti, let's start treating them as people. When we scream at screen time, rationing with them, and when we take our smartphones into the toilets even that we go to in the morning, who are we to decide what they should or shouldn't do? First, we have to get realistic about spending creative time with children. You want to distract them, you will give them the phone. After 40 minutes, when you're free, you start saying, you're still on the phone. This is absolutely unacceptable. And what will happen today? The same kid will turn around and say, but Mama or Papa, you even carry your phone to the toilet and you're telling me what my screen time rationing should be. Also set examples and precedents for what you're preaching them, right? You can't practice something else and preach something else. Number 3, Aku comes back really late from school. The school hours are very long in Singapore. The first thing we do is we pick up a canvas and we start painting. Despite all the fatigue of the day and the exhaustion, the first thing she does is, so we don't head to a television set, and I try and keep my phone silent all the time when she's around. I actually start my work after your 7 o'clock India time, which is my 9:30. By the time she's in bed, she's settled down, and I start looking at my mails and I start answering my calls, which means that I work way into the wee hours of the morning every day. But this is one adjustment I will have to do around her if I have to create an ecosystem which remains creative, she remains exploratory, and she remains conversant with me on things that I also want to talk to her about. Now, these are personal choices. Some people may want it, some may not want it. I'm not going to go to the another extreme and say ban all TV, ban junk food, ban this, ban that. That's also very negative. Eventually, a child will head out into the world, will have a certain way of looking at whatever the peers are eating, whatever they are reading, and whatever they are watching. But your own quality time with the child should not get negotiated. And if that is getting negotiated, don't turn around and bark orders at your own child.
Yeah, that's the thing about the phone you said, right? It hits home. I've seen that so often where it's like, oh, my daughter, what my son doesn't read. I'm like, but do you? Or do you, fill a home with books? Do you stay away from your phone in between your free time? And that really happens that parents expect a certain higher standard from kids when they themselves don't, follow those.
And everything the school is supposed to do, the teacher is responsible for all good behavior, everything. You will go on using bad language, you will keep screaming at each other, you will keep judging people, you will keep calling people foolish. I mean, I've also done that. I've become more mindful of my own conditioning and judgments from the time she's born. Of course, because we worked with children for so long, we were slightly more aware, but I'm no messiah. I also have my bad days. I also have my bad moments. And, like bad hair days, there are also days when, you are emotionally in an upheaval. But the point is the awareness and the mindfulness of a child's presence around you. That itself will lead the way, very much the way the child will lead you into zones which are so fantabulous and so magical. I mean, if you will allow that space to open, you will enjoy. Else, it's going to be the same hit and trial method of this works and this doesn't work, that doesn't work. School is bad, teachers are bad, send him or her to tuition. That's lazy parenting. Again, I'm saying these are matters of personal choice.
Yeah. No, yes, matters of personal choice, but absolute, actually, I think like this, there are ways you can change ecosystem in bits as well. And I think all of us are, can do a little more mindfulness about our own ecosystems as well, even as an adult. And I don't have a child, but I would love, to create a space, or I actually try to create spaces without where the TV or the net or my Netflix is not the first thing I do after work, right? Open a book maybe or try and sketch some. So yes, absolutely agree. I think that's just a way to a more vibrant world. To end this, taking forward your recommendation bit on parenting and creating creative ecosystems, rather, books that maybe you've read to Aku, if I may call her that as well. Um, that you've read to her or that you have absolutely loved, or she's loved, that you can recommend for kids and parents alike?
There are so many, Prakriti. We read 50 books in a month. I'm already out of stock every third week. And one whole room, yeah, we read a book every night. So I started with smaller books, which I can finish in one night. But I've read quite a few things for her. I did. I also wanted to be very rooted in Indian epic storytelling paradigm. I read Jataka tales to her, and I also try and read a little Hindi. Frankly, my husband really tries to speak to her in Hindi, all the time because she's living in another country right now. Um, but fantastic books. I mean, there are books about even things like going to the playground and finding things. I started the Little Prince, but I'm going slow on that. One of the things she's really enjoying right now is Tales of Mullah Nasruddin, and she finds that whole donkey which disappears very funny, you know. But in terms of realistic writing, I must say that the West is doing fantastic work on realistic writing. Um, Also, the whole idea of fantasy. So recently, we read a book which is a vampire family, and they are exactly like a vampire family, like a regular everyday family. They go for play dates, they eat ice cream. But yes, they look like vampires, whatever the empirical idea of being a vampire is. And I think it's a very peculiar but a very fantastic idea of bringing in fun and joy to a regular family, which uh, uh, most people wouldn't think. Everything about vampires is so negative and blood sucking and so evil. Also, I think one of the things which I try to bring in is the idea of good and evil, which is very early, it will get formed, which is very much the yes and the no, the negative and the positive. I think there is there can be joy in evil. And sorry, I'll be judged for what I'm trying to say. Everything that the idea of uh, long nosed, witch on a broomstick can also be good. And I remember many years ago reading about, if you remember, one of the stories about a little girl whose father was a tailor and the mother was a seamstress, and the mother had passed away. And it was Christmas time, and nobody could bring her a frock, for the torn seam to be stitched. And one which came on a broomstick, left some of those things on Christmas Eve, and the father found it and made a new cup for her. Now, it's such a fun tale. I've read it so many times. Each time I read it, compassion, kindness, love, so many of these lovely emotions, come up each time you read something like this. So I'm also trying to expose her to every possible kind of literature. If it could be a Little Prince, it could be a Jataka tale, it could be Knights which on a broomstick, it could be a vampire family, it could be, of course, Peppa Pig, who she absolutely adores. But also the stories of the Panchatantra, which I think are such great fun because animals and nature, she loves jungle books. And the moment I realized that, the moment I started reading Panchatantra to her, she absolutely started, relating to those characters. Also, most of the stories end on a very interesting, note. Um, I know we were all very bored in moral science classes in school, mostly growing up in India. But I think storytelling is can be very interesting to also learn about values in life. It just depends how you tell a story. So that's why I'm saying read a story to a child every day or at least 3 times or 4 times a week. And very soon you will find the child himself or herself will start telling stories. Now she'll start telling stories, of her own. She's making songs of her own. The other day, I thought she was rapping, standing, in the middle of playground. She was reciting a poem which I never heard before and sounded like rap to me. So I'm just saying that if you keep the creative instincts open and if you keep some sense of involvement in that world with the child, I think there is no dearth of stories and music and happiness, around the child.
That is amazing. There's so many takeaways. I'm sure our readers are gonna like this is note taking notes, start taking notes kind of a, um, moment. But thank you so much. On this note, I will wrap up our interview. Thank you so much for making time again. This was so lovely speaking with you and so lovely reading the book. I've gone through
Yeah,
about five
thanks.
chapters and it takes a minute as an adult to get used to the kind of abandoned fun, but it's rewarding. It's so endearing and rewarding, and thank you so much for writing it. I look forward to your next work.
So thank you for such kind words for this book, and let's keep painting the elephant's red.